Have you ever wondered if becoming a millionaire is really possible for someone starting from scratch? I know I did. As a single mom working a W-2 job, just trying to make ends meet, the idea of financial freedom felt completely out of reach. But through small, intentional steps, I've completely transformed my finances and my life. If you've ever felt behind or overwhelmed, please stick around because I'm here to show you what's possible for you. Hi, I'm Sandra Park, a financial coach and engineer passionate about helping women in STEM take control of their finances. On this channel, we'll tackle everything from budgeting to building wealth so that you can create the financial freedom you deserve. Recently, I was invited to share my story on a podcast about becoming a millionaire. This has made me reflect on my journey that sometimes I don't think about so deeply. It's been a fun walk down memory lane and doing some research digging into my past, and it's helped me also reflect and realize parts of my financial journey that I've never really thought about. Today, I want to share that journey with all of you, so let's dive in. I grew up in an immigrant family. We were very frugal. I definitely saw my share of money fights. We were probably upper middle class or middle class, but it certainly never felt like it. While money wasn't a primary focus for me, I did develop a strong work ethic from all of that. I started working at the age of 15. I got my very first part-time job. Before that, I did previously work for my parents in their laundromat, but that was for free. My first paying job I sought out was a bagger and then later a cashier at a local Kroger grocery store. I actually got fired from that job. That's another story for another time. And I moved on to working at Taco Bell, and it was within walking distance of my house. So I remember walking there every day to go to work. I bought my first car in cash with money I've saved up from all those jobs at the age of 18. Also, at the age of 18, I bought my very first house. I recall buying it on one of those low-income type of programs and getting some type of assistance where I didn't have to have very much of a down payment. But that was the beginning of my home-owning real estate journey. I started college at the age of 19. I went to community college and four-year college at the same time to try to save money at community college. I cash flowed all of college as I went along. I worked a lot and I graduated debt-free. As you can see, the early part of my life, I had a very good financial foundation. I made some good smart decisions. I stayed away from debt. But as I move into the next phase of my life, this is where I began my career as an engineer. There was a time period when I didn't get a job right out of college. I actually worked at a Fry's electronics store, which is now defunct and they're all out of business. I remember interviewing with them and they said, well, you have an engineering degree, so you can get a job in the computer department. So that's where I worked. 9 months after graduation, I got my very first job offer as an engineer at a very big company. I actually got that job as a result of a college friend recommending me for a job in our group. I actually looked up my records of what I paid taxes on and reported on for earnings. A year before I started working as an engineer, I barely broke the $10,000 mark of income that year. Prior year before that, all my college years, I made between $4,000 or $5,000 a year. My initial starting salary as an entry-level engineer was $42,000. At that time, I was so excited. I did not negotiate it. I did not do any research. Looking back, it was a bit low. I did get a bit lowballed, but whatever. I was so excited just to land my first job. I remember they promised me that I'd be making $46,000 within 2 years. There was a system back then where they gave you a $1,000 pay raise every 6 months automatically. This is a huge leap from my barely breaking $10,000 the year before. I thought I had made it, and it was a good salary. So back then, I was making close to or around the same amount as the median income of a family of 4 in my geographic area. When I think back to that, I think, wow, look at how much money I was making back then. So by all outward appearances, it looked like I had made it. I got my first professional job. But then what I realized started was the comparison, the keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with all my coworkers. I had some coworkers run out and buy brand new cars when they got their first engineering job. I had other coworkers run out and buy their first house, and people making all these big purchases with their money, and me feeling that need to keep up with other people. Despite my salary increasing over the years, and even up until the point where I was close to the 6-figure mark, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I remember paying overdraft fees and trying to argue with the bank about them. I racked up credit card debt for the very first time in my life. Not too much, but there was a pattern and a trend starting with me putting things on credit cards and not paying them off every single month. There were times that I had to borrow money from family or friends. I remember borrowing money for the very first laptop I ever wanted to purchase. The irony was, I was a broke college student borrowing money from another broke college student. I don't know why I did that. I did pay her back. I paid her back very, very quickly. I hated the idea of having an outstanding debt from a friend that was very close to me. The one good thing I did do in my early engineering career, and it was mostly just because I had other male coworkers telling me what to do and giving me some free financial advice, was I did invest in my company 401k. So let's talk about the turning point for me. At age 35, in the year 2016, I made a decision to voluntarily leave the company that I had been working at since I had graduated from college. That first job, I stayed at that company that long. For the first time in my life, I was faced with the prospect of not having a paycheck coming in. I remember I had been working since I was 15. I had always been good at earning and making money. I was planning for a short career break. I was thinking I would not be working for about 3 to 6 months while I was waiting for a security clearance to process in order to get another job. To make a long story short, that 3 to 6 months turned more into a whole year of not working. I did, during that time, sell 2 properties, and both of them, one made a pretty good profit, the other one made an okay profit. But between the 2 of them, I had quite a bit of money. So in one fell swoop, I went from a negative net worth to all of a sudden a very positive net worth. What's interesting is that made me realize I had no clue or idea how to manage my money. I was scared I was gonna blow all this money that I had profited from, that was sitting in the bank. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to invest. I was scared that I was going to mismanage the money. So to me, that was my big turning point, my big aha moment. I know for other people, it's sometimes being in massive debt and not being able to pay bills. Because I was always kind of paddling and treading along, it wasn't really a turning point for me. The turning point was all this money is coming to me and I had no idea what to do with it. I felt the weight and responsibility of that. My lack of financial management really caught up to me. I realized I could no longer just rely on other people. I couldn't just rely on friends or boyfriends or coworkers' advice. I needed to actually learn how to manage money on my own. The other interesting thing I realized is when I was very broke and college student and I was poor, managing money wasn't that important to me because I didn't have very much money to manage. You manage every dollar really well because you have so few dollars coming in. It was only when I was in this abundance phase of life that I realized, oh, I have to really learn how to manage my money now. So you might be asking, how did I learn all this? Well, like many of you, I turned to the internet. Not YouTube though. I was not into YouTube back then, but I remember Googling on the internet. I don't remember the exact phrase or words I Googled, but I stumbled across this class called Financial Peace University. Back then, it was only taught in person at churches. I made a big point during this career break. I was thinking, I have time. I can dedicate some time to learning more about money. I signed up for a 9-week in-person Financial Peace University class at a local church. I remember they even threw in free childcare for my son. While my whole life didn't change in 9 weeks, I will say that was the jump start to my financial journey. In that class, I learned how to manage money. Despite the overwhelming amount of information that told me I needed to save, pay down debt, invest in a Roth IRA, invest in my 4K, and do all these good financial things, I knew that. I think a lot of people know that. What Financial Peace University did for me was it brought clarity. It helped introduce me to a plan, a strategic way of learning to manage my money and do things step by step so that I could be focused. In that class, I learned about budgeting, but I will admit in that 9-week class, I did not master budgeting. I remember back then I thought I made this plan on paper. I used the template from the workbook, and I thought, why did my whole life not transform? But it did plant a seed. It wasn't only till later that I truly learned how to budget, and that was through the aid of the internet. Shout out to the Budget Mom. I used to watch her very long, hour-long videos where she went over everything in detail about how to budget. Also in that time frame, I paid off the amount of credit card debt I had. I believe I never got to over $20,000 of credit card debt. I never had a whole lot, but it was more the behavior and the fact that I was resorting to credit cards and not paying it off each month. That was more of an issue. I learned that in the class. I paid it off within 2 years, so I had a paid off car. Also during that time frame, I hired my very first financial advisor. Following Dave Ramsey's baby steps, a simple framework for building wealth, I did become a baby steps millionaire. So let's talk about what is a baby steps millionaire. Baby steps millionaire is a person who has followed the baby steps. It means that they are a net worth millionaire. This means assets minus liabilities gives you an over $1 million net worth. I reached this pinnacle or milestone back in early 2021. Despite my projections and hypotheticals and calculations, I beat my projection by 2 years. Then in early 2024, I paid off my house. So for those of you that follow the baby steps, I officially finished baby step 6 and reached baby step 7. Then in late 2024, I reached another milestone of hitting the 2 million net worth mark. Most of my net worth is from investments. I know with other sometimes baby step millionaires, a lot of their net worth is from equity or from house. But my problem was I changed houses quite a bit. So I have some equity, but the large part of my net worth is really from investments. But I do want to acknowledge the role that real estate played in my journey. It just wasn't a huge significant role, but it did help me with the down payments. And I did build up some equity every time I moved into a different house. I want to talk about some of the shifts in mindsets that I've had. I know a lot of people will talk about you have to have this belief that you'll become a millionaire. You need a millionaire mindset. You know, these are the habits of millionaires. I'm going to be honest. I'm a very skeptical person. And even though I ran the numbers and did calculations, I was utterly skeptical that I would ever become a baby steps or net worth millionaire. I actually didn't believe it until I was getting close to like the $800,000 net worth mark. So for those of you that don't have the belief first, I think that's okay. If you're a data-driven, skeptical type of person, sometimes you need to see the numbers. Sometimes you need to see the numbers change in your favor, and then you can actually believe it. I also think there's an issue with just fixating on that $1 million net worth mark, because I believe that's very outcome-based and outcome-focused. If you just kind of focus more on this journey of who you're becoming along the way and trying to enjoy the journey, I think that is more fruitful sometimes. Along the way, I also did transition from let me just get to the end of the month and pay my bills and make sure I have some money left over to a bigger, more expansive type of mindset where I was focusing more on my net worth. So you get more of that month to month, week to week, check to check mentality, and you move more into what is my overall net worth? After a while, I didn't find it was that fruitful to track my net worth all the time, because the problem with tracking your net worth is a lot of it's not always under your control. You can't control stock market returns. You can't control how the stock market's doing. You can't control if your house has dips in value. So over time, I've focused less on that tracking of that outcome because it's not in my control. I've also switched over to using a lot of digital apps, and it does that tracking even better than me. I've also learned not to tie my net worth to my self-worth. There were times when I was overly fixated on my net worth, and I would log in and see what it was on the app. Honestly, it would make me feel bad for the entire day. Now I realize the fallacy in that. and realizing I have to zoom out and see the bigger picture where it's not about one day of returns and one day my portfolio is doing really well or bad. All these things are not in my factor of control. So that is one thing I've learned over time, is to not let it upset you. You're in it for the long haul. These are your long-term financial goals. It is not about how your portfolio is doing from day to day. Some of my reflections and takeaways. I achieved this as a single mom, and I did this on a W-2 income. Yes, I admit, being an engineer, I made more money than probably a lot of people. But remember, it was a journey. I started at that $42,000 a year mark, and I've worked myself up over the years. I will also note, even though now I'm a business owner, that was very, very late in my journey. Honestly, being a business owner has not contributed significantly at all to my net worth. I also want to give hope to the people that are single parents. I did this on a single income. I really did not work any side jobs. I did not side hustle. I have the type of job where I don't get paid for overtime, or that's not really a feasible option. I just made the most of what I had, and I managed the money I had. I managed the money I made very well. If you ever feel you're starting late, don't forget I did too. I started at 35. Looking back, look at what less than 1 decade of focus did for me. Really, the journey starting from about 2016 to 2021, that's about 5 years for me to hit that first million mark. But then from 2021 to 2024 is when I hit that second million. Look at how much faster it took for the second million compared to the first million. I also want to know, it's great to run calculations and hypotheticals and look at all the investment calculators out there. But I always want to tell people that once you add in hope and momentum and sheer human power and will, we can beat any calculator projection. I'm not saying don't listen to math. There are rules in mathematics and numbers. But once you start seeing the numbers change, that momentum, when you see you're close to your goals, can really propel you. I also want to address the emotional journey I had during this time frame. I changed from a person that was scared, unsure, not confident about my money, always asking other people for advice. Honestly, free advice from broke strangers is not very good. Now I've transformed into a person who can research, I can learn, I can vet out advice, and I know what's good advice or not. I'm a confident, assured investor. I feel in control of my money and that my money serves me, and I'm not working to serve my money. You might ask, why am I sharing all this? And I'm not doing this to brag. If anything, I've always been a little nervous about revealing too many of my financial details or anything about my net worth. I think it's also just maybe very contrary to a woman to want to brag about money and all that. So believe me, sharing something this personal is not easy, and I don't want to use it to signal virtue or as a marketing or branding tactic. I know I could easily put Millionaire in the title of every single video and it would get a lot of likes or subscribes, but I don't want to do that. But I do want to address my millionaire journey, and it's more for me also to reflect back before I do this podcast interview. It's been fun for me to realize the shifts for me, because I've always told people I don't have this incredible story. I've always told people, well, it just happened. I just started doing this stuff and then poof, I became a millionaire and really good with my money. I never really dissected my story and the turning points and the different phases of my life. I do think it's really important to talk about it though, because as much as people might trust me, I want people to know that I've done what I talk about. This is why I so firmly believe in financial literacy and learning how to manage your money better, because I've done it personally. It's transformed and changed my entire life. I feel I make better decisions, not just in career, life, relationships, money, everything. Just the amount of stress is taken away from me, the anxiety, not having to compare myself to others. It's given me this mental peace and clarity, and it's opened my life up to all these options. Managing money might feel overwhelming at first, like it did for me, but I want you to know it's worth the effort. It's a journey of 1,000 small steps. It's not big sweeping actions. It's the small things you do day in and day out. Let me know your biggest takeaway from my story in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Before you go, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. It really means so much to me. I'm trying to grow as a YouTuber, and that's the little thing you can do for me. It pours into me so that I can pour more into you and helping everyone else out there and educating them. Thank you for watching.